I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa. Fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday. Week 7 is in the books. Many of our favorite wide receivers are in a hospital somewhere. It was another tough week. The only good thing I will tell you about Week 8, which is coming up, is for reasons surpassing understanding, there are no buys in Week 8. So maybe that'll help fill some of your lineup holes. But it's going to get almost impossible to go without having some kind of injury-related lineup hole. How are your teams faring, Dennis?
So I don't think I have any Mike Evans. Got just a little bit of Godwin and Debo. I feel like I'm going to be okay. I think I got enough depth. You know, Debo's out for a couple weeks. And I think I might only, if I have any Ayuk, I think it might be just one share. So overall, I'm not in as bad a shape as Tampa or San Francisco when it comes to wide receivers.
Or even Seattle, I would guess with a grade 1 MCL sprain, DK is going to miss at least 1 week. So, maybe that'll light a fire under JSN.
Week to week. We need to light a fire under Geno to throw him the ball.
Yeah, aren't we all week to week? Well, let's dive into these games, such as they were. We had the third and final London game, which featured the 1-5 Patriots at the 1-5 Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars get the 32-16 victory. Dennis, the interesting thing for the Patriots is Ramondre Stevenson played, but it turned out the running back you had wished you played was probably JaMycal Hasty, who somehow came out of nowhere with 5 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown. Nobody did anything of note on the ground, but he was definitely catching passes. Gibson and Stevenson still there, but I'm imagining Hasty going to be something of a waiver ad this week. How are you feeling about this Patriot backfield?
I'm a little bit torn because Ramondre Stevenson is every bit as good a pass catcher as JaMycal Hasty. And so if you're not going to give Ramondre the ball 20 times on the ground, then why are you not throwing it to him? He's put up good numbers over the course of his career when asked to participate in the receiving game. I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, I was in Gerard Mayo's corner, but maybe he's in over his head. And, we got to suffer some growing pains while he figures out some stuff. I saw a little bit of stuff this week where there were people in Mike Vrabel's corner, but Robert Kraft was like, I think he's going to want too much power, like Belichick wanted too much power, and I'm going to go with this other guy that I think I can control a little more right now.
Ramondre, they have targeted him a few times. He has 15 receptions, but he hasn't done a lot. Only 44 total yards on those receptions. And you're seeing like 2 receptions for 9 yards against Seattle, 4 for 19 against San Francisco, 4 for 3 against Miami, 2 for 7 last week. I'm wondering, too, if Ramondre's not back at full health, and maybe since they were way behind, they just inserted Hasty and figured he'll be better at blocking and running at 2-minute. The one that leaves me curious. I haven't seen that Antonio Gibson got injured, but He did not. He only had one target and only 3 carries, so he wasn't a big factor either.
Yeah, and I'm basing my Ramondre take on the fact that in 22 he had 88 targets and 69 receptions. Now,
Nice.
let's see. What's that?
I said nice. 69 receptions.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm still catching up. I got home late and the wife was like, "Hey, make taco meat. I'm going on a bike ride."
So it looks like, 12 receptions for 119 yards so far for Antonio Gibson. It just felt like a weird game decision. All this to say, like, I get people adding JaMychal Hasty, especially in deep leagues, because who knows? But I'm not sold that this was anything more than a weird aberration.
Because it does feel like they spent more money on Antonio Gibson. They've talked about using Antonio Gibson. It's I don't know. It's New England. They're not great this year. I think if anything, what we've seen is that you can play Hunter Henry and now Drake May. I think Drake May is definitely flex worthy.
Meanwhile, on the other side, Travis Etienne missed with the injury. Not a lock that he comes back this week, but even if he does, Tank Bigsby thriving again, 26 carries, 118 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He now has 415 yards and 4 touchdowns on 67 carries. He's averaging 6.2 yards per carry this season. Do you think he's carved out a bigger role for himself?
I don't know if he's carved out a bigger role or if he just smashed through the door like a tank and took it. I mean, he's a complementary back to what Travis Etienne does. Etienne is a perimeter back. He doesn't have as good a vision, I don't think, as Tank does. And, this is what they envisioned for Bigsby last year. But the step up in competition was a little much for him. And after, it felt like he had some confidence issues after fumbling and missing a couple passes. Now, they're still not using him in the pass game. But if he's going to get 20 carries, averaging, 6 yards a carry, he was 26 for 118 and 2 touchdowns this week. It does feel like you have to be wary of him getting game scripted out. They did they did throw to D'Ernest Johnson 4 times, and with only 20 pass attempts, if they have to throw it 30 times or more, I do think that we may see more Travis Etienne in those types of situations, and that would limit Bigsby's exposure. But to me, it's the passing game now. It goes through Michael Thomas and Evan Ingram, or Brian Thomas and Evan Ingram.
Yeah, Michael Thomas wishes he was back. The Atlanta Falcons hosted the Seahawks. Seahawks snapped the 3-game losing streak with a 34-14 victory. Big game again for DK Metcalf, 4 for 99 and a touchdown, but he got an injury to his knee. It has been revealed to be a MCL grade 1 sprain. I think it's likely he probably misses at least this next game. If he is out, what are you feeling about Lockett and JSN?
I think Lockett can provide a deep threat. He's done that in the past. Neither of them are going to provide the just sheer overpowering presence that he does. Jake Bobo will slide into that role. Jake Bobo, however, is not fast. But he's a big receiver, and he's flashed and made plays. But I would expect that Metcalf, Lockett, and Noah Fant will be the primary beneficiaries. And we've also seen Kenneth Walker getting decent pass volume in some games as well, as he's really, put up some good stuff. Zach Charbonnet, he may end up being flexible with DK Metcalf out, but I think the passing game is really going to run through those other 2 wide receivers and Noah Fant.
Yeah, and Metcalf had 7 targets on Sunday, 6 apiece for Lockett and JSN. Just hope that JSN can do that. 3 catches for 9 yards felt very 2023 to me. Meanwhile, for Atlanta, what do you make of this passing game? You know, Kirk Cousins, he feels like he's been up and down a little bit, but it seems like we're kind of consolidating. The targets are flowing through Pitts, London, and Mooney. Are you feeling better about those 3?
I love that. And it I don't like to see Kirky with 2 interceptions, but the funnel, the funnel has narrowed. And Pitts had 9 targets, London and Mooney 8, and Bijan 5, and that's the top of the list there. Ray McLeod with 4 targets was probably still too many, but I like that they recognize we have some elite talent, and Kirk is smart enough to get the ball to them. If we can keep that kind of target flow moving along on a weekly basis, they're going to continue to produce. I mean, Atlanta is top 8 in attempts and completions, and they have the 4th lowest sack rate. So that bodes well. I mean, Kirk's not a mobile guy coming off that injury. If that offensive line has gelled and is protecting him, and with those pass weapons, you got Mooney who can beat anybody deep. He's so fast. And London is a big guy. Pitts is a mismatch. And then you have Bijan and Algier. It looks good in Atlanta.
The Buffalo Bills hosted the Tennessee Titans 34-10. The Bills get the victory. Dennis, kind of a mild surprise to me. Saturday night, they said the shoulder injury for Will Levis got worse or became a good excuse. He got pulled, and Mason Rudolph went in. They were actually up 10-7 at the half. A lot of people talking about this offense looking better. Did you think it looked better with Rudolph? He finished 25 of 40 with 215 yards, a TD, and an INT. Not incredible stats, but considering Will Levis was sub 100 the last game he started, maybe it is an improvement.
Yeah, it feels like Rudolph gives them a higher floor. But we know what Rudolph's ceiling is, and that's not terribly high either. He's an Andy Dalton-esque backup at this point. That's, when your number one goes down, it's exciting for him to come in because you're comfortable. He's going to make the right reads, make the right throws. There's physical limitations and stuff that are going to they just prevent him from being an actual long-term starter. Unfortunately for Tennessee, the number one is Will Levis. So while he's got a great arm and is a great athlete, he doesn't make great decisions and doesn't get the ball where he needs it to go. Ridley, again, 9 targets, but only 3 catches. So that's an improvement over last week's 0 for 8. You're moving in the right direction, I guess. That's the best thing going. DeAndre Hopkins, it seems, had a courtesy completion to keep his games with a catch streak intact. If he's not, like, DeAndre Hopkins was an elite wide receiver, and if he's not that anymore, Eli Manning him, put in Daniel Jones there and just let somebody else. I mean, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine seems to be the touchdown guy. I say that jokingly, but I don't know. The team is a mess.
Yeah. Well, I do like what they've gotten out of Tyler Boyd, maybe some familiarity with the system. Meanwhile, for the Bills, they welcomed Amari Cooper in. He caught a touchdown on his first reception, but pretty even splits, 7 targets apiece for Shakir and Coleman, 6 for Dalton Kincaid, 5 for Amari Cooper, all of them fairly productive. How did you feel about this new look Bills passing game?
Well, it was nice to see Josh Allen go over 30 pass attempts. That was a good thing for fantasy. It was his season high, and the 21 were his second most completions. So hopefully he can get on track and throw a few more passes now that he has Amari Cooper. And I think Cooper's presence will balance the defensive coverage a little bit, allowing for, Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid to step up. But I mean, Cooper, 66 yards and a touchdown in his first game. I think once he gets more familiarity with the offense and what Josh Allen can do, it'll definitely be a good thing. I think Curtis Samuel got injured, so he's probably going to fade off into the ether now. And it'll be Coleman, Shakir, and Cooper, and Cook, and Kincaid, and Dawson.
I think that makes the most sense anyway, given the weapons that they have.
Yeah.
I don't think Curtis Samuel signing ever quite panned out the way some of us thought it might.
I like that they spread it around, and I think 7 targets. If the accuracy is good, I think 7 targets per game will make all of these guys fairly productive.
In the Battle of Ohio, the Cincinnati Bengals got a 21-14 victory. Dennis, the Bengals were 1-4. They've won the last 2, now back at 3-4, 3-1 on the road, 0-3 at home, curiously. How are you feeling about the Bengals as a contender in the AFC?
Somebody's got to be, right?
Well, we have a pretty good cream of the crop, it seems like, developing with Buffalo and Baltimore, Kansas City, and Houston.
They've got the offense to be able to do it. With Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow, they can put up points most games. Cleveland has a good defense, and they played well, so they only gave up the 2 touchdowns. I think they'll be a playoff contender. I don't think they're going to catch Baltimore. Baltimore looks fantastic, and we'll get to that later. But Chase Brown, kind of struggled against a good rush defense, only 2.9 yards per carry, and 2 passes caught. Moss was 3 for 3 in passes, 1.2 yards per carry. So the Browns' defense lived up to their billing. It made it difficult for, I think, the Bengals' offense. You've got to do better, I think, if you want to be a serious contender. But somebody's got to be that 7th playoff seed. So I think Cincinnati has as good a shot as any.
Meanwhile, for the Browns, they welcome back Nick Chubb, who gets into the end zone, only 22 yards on 11 carries. But Deshaun Watson ruptured his Achilles tendon. He is out for the season. It seemed like they were trying to preemptively head off any fan complaints by making Jameis Winston inactive and the emergency 3rd quarterback prior to that game. But I would assume that he will be the starter of preference over Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Either way, how are you feeling about this Browns team?
Is God doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves, I guess. Watson was playing bad, and I get that you stick by a guy, but if you're gonna have a guy and you're gonna stick by him, hopefully he's a stand-up guy, and I think we kind of saw that Watson kind of wasn't. And then. No, I think it'll be a couple weeks of Jameis and some not winning, and then they'll try to see what do we really have with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. It wouldn't surprise me if a couple more Browns get traded. I don't know that they're going to move. I don't think they're going to move Myles Garrett by any stretch, but there's a couple players that. I was listening to local radio this morning. They mentioned like Greg Newsome and Joel Bitonio and stuff. And I think if you're Cleveland, you've got to get some ammunition to be able to go get some more talent on the team.
Do they finally have their draft pick this year? Are they done with number 1s that went for Watson, or is this one more year?
I think they have it, but I'd have to look. So don't quote me on it. Chubb coming back from injury, he had a game. He got the touchdown, and that kind of helped. But he was splitting time, though he did lead in carries pretty decisively. it's a tough game out there. I do like that Cedric Tillman stepped up 8 for 81.
They do own their number one pick. So let me ask you a question. If they end up with the number 1 or 2 overall, do you think they take a quarterback?
I think they have to. I think they take a quarterback whether Stefanski is let go or not. If they're 1 or 2, I just think there's a lot of talk locally that this injury is gonna be what facilitates Watson not playing for the Browns anymore, and that based on how he has played since he's come back, there's talk that a lot of there's some people that don't think he'll get another shot.
No, I mean he's kind of toxic for off the field issues. One of the things he had going from still getting jobs was the last time he had been on the field, he was incredible, but now
he's toxic on the field too.
Yeah, 3 years, you've only gotten 19 games out of Watson, and the 7 you got this year were miserable. So, yeah, I think this could be, he'll get to play out his last 2 years because why release him? You have to pay him 90 something anyway. But
designate him a post June 1 cut, get him off the team. You don't need him. He's not just bite the bullet, move on, draft you a rookie, get the number 1, bring in Shadir Sanders. That'll be smooth.
Green Bay Packers hosted the Texans, got the 24-22 victory, Dennis. Last week, without Nico Collins, the Texans did okay and got a big win against New England, but this week, only 86 yards passing for Stroud, 10 of 21. They had trouble getting stuff going in the passing game. Are they missing Nico Collins?
It seems like it, but they're also pounding Joe Mixon since he got back. He has been carrying the ball the last couple of weeks. But, Stroud is averaging 145 yards a game over the last 2 games, and that's not good, Bob. I think, though, with Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz, they should be able to pass the ball on anybody.
Yeah,
I get you have a bad game now and again, and this was a bad statistical game. The 0 for 4 on Tank Dell. Only throwing the ball 21 times. They rushed it 33 times, including Stroud's 5 carries. So
probably 28 safely because I don't think Stroud's were designed runs.
Right.
They probably had 26 pass plays and 28 run plays. That's pretty balanced.
And then with it being a relatively close game, you're probably, you're not playing catch up. So you're not chucking the ball all over the field, or you didn't get up early on the backs of some big pass plays. I think
the surprising one for me is Tank Dell. He only had a couple of receptions last week. He had no receptions on only 4 targets, 7 targets for Diggs, only 5 for 23. So your 2 kind of big receivers combined had 11 targets and turned it into 5 receptions for 23 yards. They're going to need more than that even against the Colts this next week.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, for the Packers, they get a victory. What do you think this win means to the Packers? There's been a lot of talk about the Vikings, who were undefeated prior to Sunday, and the Lions. Packers,
one pride, baby,
just lurking there in the background. They are now 5-2. There are 3 teams with 5 wins in the NFC North. What did this win mean for the Packers?
Well, it was big for them to keep pace with Detroit and Minnesota. It's the first game-winning drive of 2024 for Jordan Love. So I think that's a nice confidence booster. You want to hear an amazing stat that I picked up listening? I think Brett Whitefield, maybe from Fantasy Points, is where I heard it. 213 pass receptions. Josh Jacobs' first receiving touchdown.
Well, he didn't always have a coach that saw him as a pass catcher.
Right.
But
But he
nice
still caught 213 passes.
Dontavian Wicks also got another passing touchdown in Tucker Kraft. So, God forbid we get it to Jaden Reed or at least Dubs had nice receptions day.
I mean, the wide receiver breakdown is maddening because they do really have
poor,
quite an embarrassment of riches. I mean, they probably have the best top 5 wide receiver group, I think.
Just think if Aaron Rodgers would have actually believed in their ability to draft, he would have not abandoned ship saying they didn't give him anything, because they did a really good job the last couple of years of pulling in receivers and tight ends. We wondered how it was going to work, and damn if it didn't work really well for them.
Well, Aaron Rodgers has serious belief structure issues.
I know. We'll get to his sadness in a minute, and no one's happy.
It feels like they're settling in with, they've got guys that do different things. Dobbs is Mr. Boring, and every now and again, as the possession guy, the short area guy, he's going to have one of these games where he catches 8 passes. But Wicks and Watson are both bigger outside receivers that provide the spark there. Jaden Reed is the Deebo Samuel type receiver. He'll run the ball some. He'll make some great plays. And then you got Bo Melton as your 5. It's just an embarrassment of riches.
From a game that was kind of fun to watch to one that was much of a slog, the Colts get the 16-10 win over the Dolphins. The Dolphins are expecting to have Tua on the field in Week 8. He said he is coming back. He is practicing. Do you think that can get them going on offense?
I mean, it can't hurt. It's he was QB9 in Week 1, got injured in Week 2. I think he'll step back in. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to they're going to run through a wall for him because they're so damn happy to have him back. I think it'll open up his ability, so long as he hasn't lost anything, or he's not getting antsy. Now, I suppose that because his injury happened while he was running the ball, I don't think you're going to have that kind of getting nervous in the pocket type of thing that happens sometimes when we saw it with David Carr when he spent the early part of his career taking 100 sacks a year.
Yeah, you can't do anything but help Miami, who has been woeful.
And they're going to be hungry. They want to get back on track. They want to, the GM and Mike McDaniel have to have a serious conversation about how bad they screwed up the backup quarterback. When you have it's like there are teams where when you like Indianapolis, Washington, Miami, where you have a quarterback that has shown the propensity to get injured, you need to make sure you've got a top flight backup.
Meanwhile, the Colts are now 4-3, but they have not looked incredible. Anthony Richardson still struggling back there, especially as a passer, only 10 of 24 for 129 yards. They have a road game against the Texans this next week. How are you feeling about the Colts?
Making me nervous, man. Hopefully Jonathan Taylor gets back and plays this week. That'll be helpful. Watching Trey Sermon get usurped by someone named Tyler Goodson was certainly a thing. Richardson has just been so bad passing the ball. Sub 50% completion rate, just not getting it done there. And selfishly, we want them to play Flacco. Because Flacco we don't have to worry about Flacco running. He's going to make quick decisions. He's going to get rid of the ball. Now, I will say, this week, Richardson, Pittman, and Pierce had the top targets on the team. A.D. Mitchell and Josh Downs were second. So he's throwing it to the right people, but with only 24 attempts and completing just 10, it's not great. So if we can get a little more volume out of the pass game to help the receivers and a lot more accuracy, I think that'll be great for the receivers. But if not, then we need Richardson to go full on Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson in the run game and like pick up the pace there, Hoss.
Yeah, he has not had a game in double digits since that week 1 game, and he mostly got those double digits because he hit a couple of YOLO balls in a high scoring game. That's probably the scariest part for those of us that roster him in fantasy. I dropped him pretty far down the ranks for this week. I need to see a little bit better.
He's a prove it guy from now on. Like,
yeah,
you just can't keep rolling him out there.
Detroit Lions get the 31-29 victory over Minnesota, making both teams 5-1. Helps get them to first place in the NFC North, but it wasn't all good news. Jameson Williams facing now a 2-game suspension for PEDs. In this game, we did see Khalif Raymond, 4 targets, caught 3 for 39 and a touchdown. Tim Patrick caught 2 for 25. Do either of those guys pique your interest?
So when I initially wrote my notes, Jameson Williams had not been put on suspension, and my note was bye week dart throw, because in any given week, Raymond or Patrick can get you, 3 for 50 and maybe a touchdown. Well, now that they are, each of them have kind of bumped up the rotation a notch. Now it's like, is Goff going to start throwing the ball more? That's really like Sam Laporta is killing us fantasy managers, but they're just not throwing the ball, and their run game has been so dominant. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is the unquestioned top dog, top lion, if you will. So it's a little bit disconcerting trying to get any value out of any Lions player that's not Gibbs, Monty, or St. Brown. So I think that, you're not going to be faced with it in week 8 because there are no buys. But when we get back into the buys, Khalif Raymond and Tim Patrick, and I probably lean towards Patrick a little more, but they're low end flexes at best with upside prayer.
Yeah, Patrick is the one that I'll have higher, but I'm with you. I think it's Amon-Ra. I'm still playing Laporta, and they have 2 great running backs. But my call of Jared Goff as an MVP candidate is looking better and better by the week. I really have to send a thank you to him. We thought the Vikings might activate TJ Hawkinson for week 7. They did not, but it looks like he should be poised to be back on the field in week 8. They did have 6 targets to tight ends, Johnny Munt and Josh Oliver. How do you think this pass offense changes when they get Hawkinson back?
You got to love that 5 catches for 13 yards. That's a big old stat line.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot for him to top there.
So last year, Hawkinson was tight end 4, playing with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Kirk Cousins. He was tight end 2 in points per game. With Justin Jefferson healthy last year, he was actually tight end 3 the first 5 games, but I think Addison was out early last year. So, the Vikings, here's my concern. Hawkinson is good. I get that. Justin Jefferson is really good, and he's going to get his share. Jordan Addison, he's shown that he can be productive for fantasy with a limited amount of targets. In 2023, the Vikings had the 4th most pass attempts in the NFL. If you had to guess where they are this year, where would you guess?
Probably like 4th or 5th.
They are 2nd fewest in the league. Now, this is attempts per game. I sorted it because teams with bye weeks and whatnot. They went from 4th most to 2nd fewest pass attempts per game.
They've still been really productive with all their passing game weapons.
Yeah, they've got, but now you're going to add TJ Hawkinson, who, he comes in that he's not a Johnny Munt or Josh Oliver that's going to have this low yardage on a few targets. Hopefully you get a touchdown. Hawkinson is he's an attention tight end, a 6 for 80 tight end. Will that be there for him if they are passing it so much fewer?
I don't think it hurts Jefferson, but it might take away targets from Jones, Naylor, and Jordan Addison.
Yeah, I think Naylor will probably be the one that feels it the most.
On to New York, where the Philadelphia Eagles got a 21-3 laugher victory over the New York Giants. It was an impressive, dominating win, but does this make you feel any better about Philadelphia's offense?
Well, they passed the ball 15 times.
One of those with Kenny Pickett.
Right. And they ran it 45 times. Will Shipley had 8 carries.
Gainwell had 13 carries. I forgot he was still on the team.
And, I'm a Shipley fan. I think he's a guy that could be, one of these third down backs, change of pace backs. I think that he's got that potential. But Saquon Barkley just ran all over New York. And, it's great that A.J. Brown had his 5 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. Devonta Smith did not deliver.
He only got 2 targets. AJ Brown must feel like he was back in his Tennessee Titans days because he only got 5 targets. He's like, it's Pokemon, guys. I got to catch them all because they ain't coming.
Right. And then Grant Calcaterra filling in for Dallas Goedert. It's like, he's got, there's a little something there, but, not if you're getting 1 target.
This
15 pass attempts.
I'm sure they'll throw it more in future games. They didn't really need to because they were running all over the Giants, but it does sort of feel like Saquon Barkley, you're locked into starting. I'm starting AJ Brown if he's in there. I'm still hopeful about Devonta Smith and Goddard if they're back, but I'm a little bit nervous. And they're constantly, the other frustration, even, thankfully Saquon Barkley isn't like some of these other backs. He just get you 170 yards to make up for it. But 2 vulture touchdowns for Jalen Hurts has got to drive you up the friggin' wall. It's great if you're rostering Hurts because he's not throwing at all, but he got 3 touchdowns. His fantasy day looks incredible. Meanwhile, the Giants, they ended up pulling Daniel Jones, inserting Drew Lock to give a spark. They were quick to say that Jones is still the starter, probably on very thin ice going into what is, to me, not an eminently winnable Week 8 game in Pittsburgh. How are we feeling about Daniel Jones? Do you think we are going to see more of Drew Lock?
So I don't think you pull Jones for Lock unless you've made the determination that Jones's confidence has hit such a point that he's just not going to play well. I think there's still opportunity for him to play sufficient. He completed 66% of his passes. They just didn't go anywhere. It was for only 99 yards. He only threw the ball 21 times. They didn't do anything on the ground. And it's, he threw it to the right people. Malik Neighbors with 8 targets. Wan'Dale Robinson with 9. That's where you want to go if you're the Giants with the passing game. But they didn't do a whole heck of a lot on the ground. Tyrone Tracy, 6 for 23, was their leader. It was, Philadelphia's got a good defense. The Giants aren't going to go very far without Andrew Thomas. They're bringing in DJ Humphries for a look, former Arizona Cardinals tackle.
How shitty is Michael Thomas that he's not even getting option? MVS moved. The Saints literally signed MVS.
I think Thomas, I think there's issues with the ankle. He wasn't fast to begin with. And
I know
then
it's amazing to me. Like, you are plumbing the depths and you're looking at, even a team that should know him that's desperate for wide receivers is like, nah, dog, we're good.
well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like some front office conflicts with Michael Thomas and the Saints.
Probably. They crack
I mean,
crack it's the wrong word. It's just amazing.
So you have lived through the Drew Lock experience. So
I don't think he's any
not
better.
their
I don't
savior.
think he's any worse. The Giants. So fascinatingly enough, we know everything about the Giants process this offseason because they consented to be the offseason version of Hard Knocks, and I watched it very interestedly. And I can tell you their owner was pretty chapped and said his worst nightmare was seeing Saquon Barkley leave and go to a division rival and come back and run all over them. And they also seemed pretty set that they needed to do something different at quarterback, and they really wanted Jaden Daniels, but their GM decided it was too expensive to pay for Saquon, and I kind of gathered that Saquon was like, I don't really want to come back there because I don't like you either, and they decided it was too expensive to trade for a quarterback. And not that Malik Neighbors isn't a good player, but I don't think that solved any of their problems. And then they spent all their time signing, second and third tier offensive linemen and patting themselves on the back. And I don't think their line's any better. And, they were like, Devin Singletary's the running back we want anyway. We don't really need Saquon. That was literally, I'm listening to them talk and I'm like, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how it works out for you. And 2-5 so far is how it works out for them. And I would not be shocked if Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are gone and they have to get a quarterback and they have to completely start over, because the Giants, who are a wonderful story and a playoff team a couple of years ago, are kind of a laughing stock right now.
Yeah, they're not great.
Speaking of laughing stocks, Las Vegas Raiders going in to face the Rams, lost 15-20. It was a closer game than I thought it was going to be. We did not get Cooper Kupp back this week. Hopefully he will be back for week 8. But first, looking at the Raiders, I don't know if there's a lot to say about the Raiders, Dennis. Aiden O'Connell broke his thumb and is now out for at least 6 weeks. Gardner Minshew came off the bench, gave up 3 interceptions. They traded Devontae Adams. Jacoby Myers can't seem to get healthy. They have no running game. I mean, what are the chances they even win another game this year?
Well, insert Judy Tenuta gif. It could happen. Are you old enough to remember Judy Tenuta?
No.
She was a comedian, so she had a particular style. Anyways, Google her.
I will do it.
If I had to guess, I'd say their best shot is Denver, week 12. And then any of their final 3 games, Jacksonville, New Orleans, or the Chargers, they may be able to just pull one of those out of their ass. But
damn, that New Orleans Raiders game is we might as well call that the Depression Bowl, the way both those teams are tracking.
Yeah, it's not looking great. I don't know. Madison is playing well. Zamir White is now gone.
Not playable. Yeah. Madison's like a low-level flex for me.
Catches. Yeah, Madison's
fortunately, Brock Bowers has been gold, and he's about all they have. So Bowers and Madison, I'm interested. I'm staying away from. I literally ranked Minshew as QB 32 for this week just because there's only 32 quarterbacks we expect to play. But the Raiders. Meanwhile, the Rams, they should get Cooper Kupp back for Thursday night's game. They open the practice window for Puka Nacua. I know they're only 2-4, but they've been kind of a frisky team. Do you think they can go on a run here?
Well, it depends if Kyron Williams can pick him up and put him on his back. I mean, that seems to have been what they got going on. And for fantasy, he's doing great. I love it, but I don't know. Stafford only threw the ball 23 times this week. It was a low energy game on both sides of the ball. Run the clock out. We don't need to play too many plays. Atwell and Ty Johnson both performed okay, but getting Cooper Kupp back changes what this offense looks like. And so that should allow them to step up their production. Matt Stafford is a good quarterback. He's not an elevator. He's going to take guys. He's in a good system, and if they've got the right guys, he's going to execute it really well, and you're going to feel very, very positive about it. But he's got the bad back, and he gets dinged up in games a little bit if he's taking sacks. It's really going to come down to, can Kyren Williams keep grinding it on the ground? Can Kupp and Puka Nacua, can they both come back and match their previous productivity levels? And if they do, then the offense becomes a powerhouse again, and they've got a chance to make a run.
Speaking of dumpster fires, Carolina Panthers at the Washington Commanders. Commanders get the 40-7 victory. Dennis, Carolina feels a lot like the Raiders, a team that just does not have a lot going on for them. You're nominally playing Deontay Johnson, maybe Jatavian Sanders as a desperation tight end. The best part of their offense has been Chuba Hubbard, but it looks like they're going to start working in Jonathan Brooks this week. So what are you doing with the Panthers?
I love Jatavian Sanders. I did pick Jatavian Sanders up and play him this week in a league. I think and I tried to execute a trade in another league to get Sanders thrown in on, but was summarily dismissed. Now, Bryce Young got back in there and was 2 for 2. It was for -4 yards, but he did complete both of them. So, Andy Dalton is, there's girls you take home and there's girls you take home to mom. And Andy Dalton is a girl you just take home. You like him because he's steady. He's going to be on your bench. You put him in the game. Your quarterback gets hurt. You get a couple games out of him. But you're not going to take him home to mom. You don't want a long-term relationship with Andy Dalton. The best thing Andy Dalton had going for him this year was Bryce Young. So
I think they're going to go back to.
And they should, to be honest. You've got to get him back out there. You've got to see, can he start to overcome any of this? If you've got Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, is Thielen coming back this year? Do we know?
I don't know. He had some kind of surgery. He's still on IR. He's not close to coming back right now. And they said Deontay Johnson may end up having to go on IR.
So, it's going to be interesting to watch, but they've got some opportunities to see, is he rehabilitatable? Is that a word? Can you rehabilitate him, get him to a point where if you give him the right protection, if you put him in the right scheme with the right weapons, can he be productive? And you have to start to find that out now, especially if you're running 1-6. We've seen it over the past few years. Just because you drafted a quarterback high doesn't mean you're going to stick with him if you don't think that that's the guy. Going back to Josh Rosen, they brought in Kyler Murray. Justin Fields, they brought in Caleb Williams. If it's not working, you can boot that guy with the rookie contracts now. You can boot that guy to the curb as long as you don't sign him to a $235 million fully guaranteed contract.
I think it was 237. Before we get to the Commanders, we got a quick question. Traded Josh Jacobs for DJ Moore in a mid-round pick in a 3-player keeper. Needed a wide receiver. Have Kamara, Hunt, Hubbard, and Bigsby as running backs. Is it an L? I think is what he's looking at. Not the best value. It's hard to say what the other team's running back situations are, but apparently Kamara is on the block, so who knows what happens with him. I like Hunt until Pacheco comes back. Hubbard, we just talked about, might be losing some ground, but I do like Bigsby, so I don't think it's terrible.
No, I agree, and I think Bigsby has earned a role, and I don't think Hubbard. It isn't like Hubbard's gonna become Zamir White when Jonathan Brooks comes in. He's gonna have a role. I think he's earned a role. So for me, a lot of times, you build a team and you try to. You're always gonna have a one positional weakness, and you want to try to build the other positions to overcome it. And if you need wide receiver help, DJ Moore and Caleb Williams have a nice connection.
Yep.
And if you can only keep three, it's not like it's dynasty. So,
No.
in a three keeper, you're gonna keep DJ Moore over Josh Jacobs mostly.
Well, and I'd also say in running back terms, given where you probably took Tank Bigsby in drafts this year, he would be a better keeper probably than Jacobs going forward because, bang for your buck in the round. The Commanders now 5-2. Jaden Daniels got knocked out of this one. He is week to week with a rib injury, but Marcus Mariota rolls in, throws 2 touchdowns. They roll up 40 points. They're now 5-2. Should we start taking them more seriously as a contender?
I think so. They cut Jamin Davis today. They tried to move him from linebacker to tight end, and I think he was a first-round pick out of Kentucky and didn't pan out. So, they've got McLaurin, they've got Noah Brown, De'Ami Brown, Luke McCaffrey, they've Zach Ertz. They've got some weapons to catch the ball. Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler are very capable running backs. So Mariota, it was nice. He looked good.
Yep.
He played pretty well. He ran for 34 yards as well, which has always been one of the things he brings to the table. Jaden Daniels, if he doesn't miss too much time, I think that this team has the potential to make a push.
The best of the afternoon games was the Kansas City Chiefs at the San Francisco 49ers, and that one wasn't as good as we had hoped. Kansas City getting the 28-18 victory. Dennis, the Chiefs, they keep pounding with Kareem Hunt. Only had 78 yards on 22 carries, but gets 2 touchdowns, a lot of red zone work. Was involved, got a couple of passes. Is he becoming kind of a set it and forget it RB2 right now?
I think he is. He's not super efficient right now, and he's probably not going to be at this stage of his career, but he knows that offense. He's always falling forward. He's steady. He's got a nose for the end zone, and he'll catch a couple passes here and there. He's a good receiver, good pass blocker. I know that, we have there's a little iffiness for when Pacheco gets back. I think when Pacheco gets back, it wouldn't surprise me to see Hunt maybe move into the old Jerick McKinnon role.
I think Pirine might end up being the one that gets released.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, in part because Carson Steele's a special teamer. That's
well, and he's a different kind of like battering ram young back that they're probably trying to develop. But I think you're right about, it seems like Pirine right now comes in a lot of to give him a blow, but also running a lot of that 2-minute for blocking and catching and stuff, which we've seen Hunt do successfully.
Yeah, and that's been Hunt's role the last few years
with
up in Cleveland. So I'm okay keeping Kareem Hunt as my RB2-3 moving forward. If I've got a couple real strong running backs and he's going to be my RB3 and I've got somebody else that's reasonable, if I've got Alexander Madison, I might try to move Hunt to see if I can bolster another position.
Meanwhile, 49ers, they lost Brandon Ayuk to a knee injury, out for the year. Deebo Samuel has a lung ailment. He's actually in the hospital, not looking good for him returning in week 8. We don't know how long he will be out. Jordan Mason banged up. Juwan Jennings banged up. George Kittle a little banged up. Are the 49ers in trouble?
So the number one in my opinion, the number one thing a team needs to make a run in the playoffs in the NFL is health. Super Bowl teams are generally healthy that year. And, it's a bummer for Brandon Ayuk with the MCL, PCL, ACL, MCL, whichever. He tore two of the three.
It was ACL, MCL.
It's good for him that he got paid. He should be motivated to get back. But San Francisco has also tried to build their wide receiver core to be able to withstand things. And if they get McCaffrey back in a couple weeks, I think they're looking at mid-November, I think, for McCaffrey to return from his bilateral Achilles issues, or Achilles on both legs, as I like to call it.
Yep.
They'll have that, and then but you've got Kittle, Debo. He probably is gonna be out at least another week while he recovers. They said he's got a form of pneumonia, I believe.
Yeah, at least I would say he's definitely. I would not be. I know most of the fantasy sites give him a projection for week 8. There's no chance to me. He's in the hospital. That's.
And then also Juwan Jennings is banged up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So if they're down both Ayuk and Debo next week, we're going to get to see hopefully Jennings can play, but we got Pearsall who's going to need to step up. Jacob Cowing stepped up this week. Can they make it happen? Will Garendo and Mason get it done? And then you got Georgie Kittle.
Debo is now released from the hospital, but still dealing with pneumonia. Jennings, a hip injury. Chris Conley with a sprained ankle. They have Dallas this week. That's not a gimme.
No.
3 and 4. They're fortunate their division is struggling, but it's not the same team. Speaking of teams that we thought would be better, New York Jets go to Pittsburgh and get clocked 37-15 by Danger Russell Wilson. For the Jets, Devontae Adams came in trade, made his debut, 9 targets, only 3 for 30, 4 for 58 for Lazard, 5 for 61 for Wilson, 6 for 103 for Hall, but only had 38 yards rushing. Jets are now 2-5. Their only victories over the Tennessee Titans with Will Levis and over the New England Patriots when they had Jacoby Brissett. How are we feeling about the Jets?
Well, it was a rough start this week.
Indeed.
Brees is a must start, and Rodgers loves dumping the ball off to him. He's going to get his, even with just 38 yards rushing. Hall put up a big day. I've seen a little bit where a little bit of talk about how Hall doesn't seem to have the burst he had before the injury, and that may be so. It does take, a couple years to get fully back, so he may be even better next year. Devontae Adams he's going to get settled in just fine, and Garrett Wilson is going to continue to get good volume. I think that those are the 3. You can't really go anywhere else on the team. And you'll end up having some weeks where Tyler Conklin pops off for a little bit. Allen Lazard will still have the occasional startable game. But I think it's going to, Aaron Rodgers, he likes to funnel it to his guy. And Garrett Wilson was earning his trust and is just a better receiver than Lazard. Lazard is the third receiver, still going to get some play. And there'll be games when either Lazard Wilson or Adams suffer for fantasy a little bit at the expense of Lazard. But I'm looking at this right now as an opportunity to buy a little lower on Garrett Wilson because I still believe in the talent.
Yeah, 9 targets apiece for Hall, Wilson, and Adams. You got to like that. Meanwhile, for Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson came in, got a start. It was a little bit of a rocky start, but he ended up playing very well. They had an explosive second half. How are you feeling about Russell Wilson?
Well, it was a rough start that I started the Jets with was actually my Russell Wilson comment. He put some balls in the dirt, did not look good early on. It looked a little bit rough.
Also a couple drops early on.
But he settled in and made some nice throws. He dropped it in the bucket a couple times. Pickens and Freiermuth made plays for him and made difficult catches. So, unfortunately for me as a Justin Fields fan, from an NFL perspective, it was the right move to put Russ in. Russ isn't going to run much, but his passing is better. 264 yards on 29 pass attempts, 16 completions. He'll have his ups and downs. Russ is at the stage of his career where he's not flawless, but I definitely think he's worthy of being a super flex consideration every week, and probably should be started as a super flex every week.
On to Monday Night Football doubleheader. In the first game, the Baltimore Ravens get the 41-31 victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ravens are now 5-2. They have won 5 straight games. No, they don't have as good a record as Kansas City, but a lot of people are talking about them possibly being the best team in the AFC now. Do you feel that way?
I mean, it's crazy that at 41-31, it was not that close. It was.
No. Yeah, 21 fourth quarter points for Tampa Bay that came at quite a steep cost.
It was, the way the Ravens are playing right now, I mean, Rashad Bateman, 4 for 121 and a touchdown, just putting up numbers. Unfortunately, Zay Flowers only went 1 for 11, so that wasn't good.
They didn't really need him when you can run. I mean, they're the rare one that 5 passing touchdowns for Lamar, and they still ran for 244 yards.
I wanted Henry to get that long one. That would have,
he did get a passing touchdown, though. So, I mean, he had Josh Jacobs. If you had that on your bingo card this week, both of them.
I mean, Lamar just looks phenomenal. And only threw the ball 29 times, 281 yards and 5 touchdowns. I'm going to join the chorus of people out there saying, I know he was the MVP last year, but he's playing better this year. And Derrick Henry looks like a monster in this offense. And Justice Hill, I think Hill is a weekly flex consideration. What, he have 3 targets, 44 yards and a touchdown?
So is Bateman. I mean, we made jokes, but they saw something in Bateman, and he's finally looking something akin to the first-round pick he was a couple years ago.
It's wild that occasionally we get the old traditional third-year breakout wide receiver like we always expected back in the old days until we got spoiled with, Odell Beckham and guys like that.
Is it only his 3rd year? I feel like it's possible it's his 4th year.
I
don't know, 2021, so 21, 22, 23. Yeah, this is his. It's that rare 4th year breakout because he got a new contract. That's why we were laughing about it. Meanwhile, for the Buccaneers, they recovered an onside kick, which was amazing, which led to Chris Godwin getting his ankle dislocated, which was not amazing. He is likely out for the year. Mike Evans injuring his hamstring. They said he is out until at least week 11. 2 great wide receivers now missing. What does that do for Baker Mayfield in this pass offense?
Well, we'll have to see how quickly Baker Mayfield injures Sterling Shepard, because we all know Sterling Shepard, as good as he can be.
Who would have thought Sterling Shepard would outlast Godwin Evans?
Right. Because Shepard is fragile. He's always been a good slot receiver.
Well, Palmer, McMillan, and Shepard have all rotated out with injuries the last few weeks. Evans and Godwin have been the ones there. Now it's those 3 guys.
Well, McMillan, if I'm putting my dollar down, I want to put it on McMillan. Excuse me. I think Shepard has a role as the slot receiver, and Trey Palmer, He's in his second year. They liked him. But McMillan, I think, is the one of those three that has the opportunity to be the alpha-ish player. I don't know if I'm going to expect another 8 for 10 for 100 yards out of Cade Otton.
I mean, they don't have a lot going on. I think it could be good for Rashad White, though.
Yeah, he could play more out of the slot.
Yeah.
Put two backs on there with him and Bucky or him and Tucker.
Yep. The second of the Monday night games was not as exciting. A 15-17 Chargers loss in Arizona. Chargers dropped to 3-3, 3-4 now for the Cardinals. In the passing game, 11 targets for Will Dissly at tight end. He got 8 for 81. I know the Cardinals traditionally have not been great against the tight end, but are you buying into Dissly at all?
I don't know. I mean, it just feels like what Quentin Johnston was out. I mean, Jalen Reagor with a 41-yard catch early
and a fumble. So
yeah, it just feels like they need to look at the guys that are supposed to be there, which is Palmer and McConkey, and let's get them the ball. Dissly, he can be a serviceable tight end. I don't think I'm not chasing 8 for 81. I will say I was sweating it last night in the Scott Fish Bowl because I was up by 10 and I had McConkey and my opponent had Dobbins. And he overtook me by about a point. And then McConkey caught a few passes late and I got a 7-point victory. I am participant number 53 in the Scott Fish Bowl out of, 3,900 people in there or something. I'm the 53rd ranked player.
I mean, you had to have been cursing when they were given 6 targets to Simi Fehoko and forgetting McConkey was out there, it seemed like.
It was crazy. I was cursing when every time Dobbins got a carry, I was like, please don't get a touchdown. Once I got my lead back, I was just like, come on, Arizona, hold the ball, because I didn't want him handing it off to Dobbins. No, it's the Chargers, they need an alpha wide receiver. Quentin Johnston isn't it. I don't think McConkey is necessarily going to be it. Maybe they could trade for Mike Williams. I don't know.
I don't know why you think Mike Williams is anything.
He's not. They should have been able to win the game, but I think Joey Bosa was out again. Kyler Murray saved his day again with a rushing touchdown, 44-yard rushing touchdown. James Conner had a great day. I'm still gonna hang on Dobbins there, and Dissly, I don't know. I don't think I can bring myself to start him. I need to see more. I need to see it consistently. But then again, we got a big, ugly tight end room this year all across the league. So, at some point we're just going to say F it and put somebody in and hope it happens. And this week it happened with Dissly.
Meanwhile, for Arizona, 21 touches for James Conner, and he accounted for 152 yards, killed it on the ground with another 100-yard day, a couple of big pass receptions. How important is he to this offense?
He seems to be the straw that stirs the drink. I've liked Conner all year. It feels like we know he's coming to the end of his useful productivity. So we're going to kind of ride it out and grind it out. They like DeMarcado in the pass game. They didn't throw the ball to him much. Murray only threw it 26 times, only completed 14. It was funny, though, that they brought Clayton Tune in to run the ball a couple times. That was weird, like 3 times. So I'm not like you've got like that's one of the things Kyler Murray is known for. Like, why are you going?
He did run for a touchdown at least. So
yeah, no, I love James Conner. I think he's one of these guys in redraft that right now I'm like, if I need a running back, I'm going to try to go get him. And if I'm a contender in Dynasty and I need a running back, and I'm like, I'm just looking for a 1-year rental, James Conner is a guy I'm going to go try to get.
Just a brief update. I just saw the news post. Andy Dalton involved in a minor car accident today, so we will see if that impacts any of their decisions this week.
Was the other driver Rice Young?
No, it doesn't say who it was, but we will see. The Panthers are in Denver this week. Before we get out of here, we will be back on Thursday night giving you the whole preview, but the Thursday night game will probably be up and going a little bit while we are on the air, so we will preview that. The 5-1 Minnesota Vikings at the 2-4 Los Angeles Rams. What are you expecting from this matchup on Thursday night?
Well, I saw today that apparently the Vikings and the Rams are hot in talks for the Vikings to acquire Matthew Stafford. I'm not sure if I believe that or not, but
I can seriously doubt that. Sam Darnold's been one of the better quarterbacks, and they have a great rookie on their team.
Well, they got McCarthy, who's the great rookie.
There you go. National champion. How many has Ohio State won recently?
Depends on how you're defining recent.
I'm not going back to the 50s.
Yeah. So then only 5. Now I think the Vikings will, they've got a balanced attack. They're getting TJ Hawkinson back, so that gives them another weapon. I would expect more of the same out of Darnold. Pretty good efficiency. He's mobile. He's got his weapons with Addison and Justin Jefferson. Hopefully Aaron Jones is back, and they're able to have that good, solid running game. On the Rams side of it, having Cooper Kupp back is always going to be good. But Brian Flores has that Vikings defense playing pretty well, despite giving up 31 points to Detroit, because they're like, the Lions are awesome. It should be a good game, which means it's probably going to be a snooze fest. The Rams have Kyren Williams, and I wish Kyren Williams weighed 212 pounds, because then I'd feel so much better about his durability. I wouldn't stick him in my lineup every week with impending doom about him not being able to hold up because they just grind him. But it's going to be a matchup of a savvy veteran quarterback and a youthful veteran quarterback that has had his fair share of challenges, but has 2 extremely high-level weapons. So I'm going to take the Vikings.
I am also taking the Vikings. I think they'll get back on track here. The NFC North continuing to be a pretty formidable division this year. That'll do it for us today. Dennis, if the people have a long, lonely Wednesday, what can they do to fill it?
They can go to their favorite podcast platform, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable, hit that subscribe button, hit that like, shoot us a rating and a review. We love that.
That'll do it for us today. You won't have to wait that long. We will be back with you Thursday evening looking at the rest of the Week 8 slate. Until then, you guys have a wonderful week.